Welcome to Scriptura's layer-by-layer overview of Psalm 37. For the wicked will perish, and the Lord's enemies will perish like flowers in a pasture. They're finished like smoke. They're finished. I once saw a ruthless, wicked person. He was ascending like a native tree, growing rapidly and resistant to any attempts to stop him. Then I passed by, and get this, he was gone. Psalm 37 responds to a person struggling to trust in the Lord when the wicked are prospering. The psalm answers such an individual by saying that the wicked will only prosper for a short time. In Israel, the word grass included flowers that grew where cattle grazed, that would dry up and die after only a short time. In the same way, the wicked will soon wither or die like a plant. Moreover, the psalm advises the righteous to trust the Lord and not to be upset by the success of the wicked, and also to do good. The purpose of the psalm is to encourage the righteous and direct them to show that they trust in God by their actions. The psalm is made up of a series of expressions that strongly encourage listeners to do something. They are grouped into multiple subsections, which predict that God will destroy the wicked, predict that the righteous will enjoy peace and prosperity, describe how the Lord cares for the righteous, and tell personal stories. All these subsections begin with letters of the Hebrew alphabet in order, making the kind of poem called an alphabetic acrostic. The people often used acrostic poems to teach, and we could describe this psalm as a lesson. David, the main speaker, is an older and wiser individual who teaches and encourages the righteous. It is right to think of this psalm as advice or wise words. The phrase, "they will soon wither," captures how confident David is. He has met many wicked people in his lifetime, and he always sees the same thing. It is certain that the flowers or the grass will not live long before drying up, and it is also certain that the wicked will not last long either. Since Psalm 37 is an alphabetic acrostic, its most obvious structure is 22 small groups of lines ordered by the Hebrew alphabet. These smaller units make 4 larger sections whose opening lines speak what the wicked do, and whose closing lines speak about how the righteous and the wicked end up. Each larger section is a new version of the same story. People are wicked and not punished immediately, but in the end they die, and their victims, the righteous, take over. Thus, each section describes the same cycle and contrasts the short-term perspective, which sees the wicked prosper, with the long-term perspective, which sees that the wicked no longer prosper. The first section, verses 1 to 11, we have summarized as getting upset versus trusting. This section introduces the psalm's overall theme. Do not get upset about the wicked, for they will soon wither like grass. This section addresses the listener in nearly every verse. The poet may have originally addressed this to just one person, since the pronouns are second-person singular. The whole section is very personal, addressed to an individual who is upset about how successful the wicked are. The psalm repeats the phrases, "do not get upset," and "you will delight yourself," multiple times, which develops the speaker's main message in a way the student cannot ignore. Do not get upset about the wicked. Follow the Lord, and then you will delight yourself in prosperity as you enjoy the land that He has given you. Possessing the land, or getting the inheritance and blessing that God first promised to Abraham, is what God still promises to the ones He favors. The overall tone of the poem is steady. David, the speaker, is calm, even though the wicked are prospering, because he is confident their lives will end badly, and he is hopeful that his life will end with God's blessing. In the second section, verses 12 to 20, which we have summarized as the wicked fade, David takes a closer look at the wicked. He provides not only his own assessment of them, but also God's perspective. There are always some wicked people who are planning to do evil against the righteous. But God knows the wicked are not really a danger to the righteous. Instead of being concerned, the Lord laughs at them. In fact, the weapons the wicked prepare in order to attack others will eventually defeat them. Although the wicked may begin life prospering and seem to enjoy many blessings, they will not end life that way. The righteous will make it through difficult times and survive, but the wicked will not survive. Like the grass and delicate flowers that dry up so quickly in the fields, and like smoke that blows away in the wind, the wicked will fade. It is just a matter of time. The third main section, verses 21 to 31, we have summarized as the righteous last. It focuses on how the righteous live. Like the previous section, it begins describing how the wicked take advantage of others. Also, like the previous section, it finishes describing how none of the wicked have survived. Unlike the wicked, God rewards the righteous by giving them the land he promised them. The wicked take things unjustly. They borrow and do not repay their debts. By contrast, the righteous give generously and live justly. In fact, their generosity is the clearest visible expression of their righteousness. It is what shows that they are righteous. The Lord supports them and gives them strength to live this way. We understand why the wicked and the righteous end their lives so differently when we contrast their morals and behavior. One group takes advantage of others, and God punishes them. The other group gives generously, and God rewards them. The second and third sections create the same contrast as the first section, but on a larger scale. Whereas the wicked fade, the righteous last. The last section of the psalm, verses 32 to 40, we have summarized as watching and waiting. Like the previous two sections, it begins with the wicked person trying to harm the righteous. Like the second section, it concludes with God saving the righteous. The idea of looking or seeing, watching, is used to replay the larger theme. At first, the wicked watch or look for the righteous in order to kill them. But the listener will look and see when God destroys the wicked. The teacher in the psalm then tells the listener to watch or look for the blameless or the innocent, because everyone should want to end their lives like them. The poetic structure of this section highlights a personal anecdote that dramatically presents this theme of watching and waiting to see how God works. The section's structure is a chiasm, or nested pairs. The verses describe God protecting the righteous in verses 33 and 39. Within that pair, the poet offers strong advice in verses 34 and 37. Within that pair, there's a personal story in verses 35 and 36. Being in focus at the center of the chiasm marks this as one of the most important parts of the psalm. The anecdote is a story from David's own life. There was a time when he saw a wicked person, until that wicked person disappeared, and the psalmist did not see him anymore. Even though the psalmist looked for the wicked person, expecting to see him, he could not find him. The wicked person was gone. He did not simply stop prospering, he disappeared. In the words of the psalm, the wicked faded, while the righteous lasted. David is talking about his own experience. He saw with his own eyes that this truly happens. In his lifetime, David saw his enemies prosper at different times. Early in life, he led hundreds of men whom other people had rejected and avoided for reasons such as owing money they could not repay. These rejected people may have been the audience David wanted to advise and teach. David's men questioned, along with David, why the wicked were succeeding and they were not. In response to such a difficult question, Psalm 37 offers 4 main ideas. First, do not get upset. The full story is different from what you see now. Second, the wicked fade. They prosper only for a time, but it will not last. Third, the righteous will last. One day they will prosper permanently. They will receive what God promised to Abraham. And fourth, just watch and wait, and time will prove this to be true. You will see. David himself saw the wicked fade and the righteous last in the past, and insists that this pattern will hold for the future. His advice: hope in the Lord, and do not let what you see now deceive you. Let's give a little historical background. The psalm assumes the righteous and wicked are living together in the land, but the wicked are successful while the righteous are not. This prompts some people to question the Lord's ways and wonder if it is worth it to live a righteous life. When they see such injustice, they become discouraged and jealous of the wicked. Since they do not feel at all hopeful, the psalmist steps in to offer wise advice about what to do. There were many times David's men would likely have needed this advice, such as the time in 1 Samuel 21 and 22. In that passage, Saul was treating David as his enemy, and David had to run away from many different places until he finally was safe in the cave of Adullam. 400 other men who were in trouble joined him there, men who owed money they could not repay, or who had offended the powerful leaders in some way. These men saw others succeeding, while they did not. The men felt rejected and had to live far from their homes, hiding from people who wanted to punish them, and they were deeply disappointed and hopeless. Psalm 34 describes these events explicitly, and it is like Psalm 37 in that it urges people to trust God to be good, even when life is difficult and unfair. The events from 1 Samuel 21 and 22 might inspire the psalmist's story in verse 25 here in Psalm 37. My whole life I have not seen a righteous person abandoned, or his children looking for food. God even cared for those hundreds of men in the wilderness with David. It is unlikely that David wrote Psalm 37 at that time, since here, in Psalm 37, he is an old man, but he probably remembered those events for a long time. Let's look at a special feature. Just like Psalm 34, Psalm 37 is an alphabetic acrostic. As a literary device, using the alphabet symbolizes being complete. The poet has taken a topic and described it completely, examining it from every angle in order to understand the topic as well as possible. The reader walks away knowing a lot and appreciating the topic. In Psalm 37, the topic is how to respond when the wicked are successful. Using an alphabetic acrostic is a way of promising that the poet will cover all the key points for this topic. After meditating on this psalm, the audience will know how to respond to questions about God treating the wicked and the righteous justly. Let's now walk section by section through the psalm.
By David. Do not get upset about those who act wickedly. Do not be jealous of those who do wrong. For they will soon wither like grass, and they will fade like green leaves on plants. Trust in the Lord and do good. Reside in the land and graze securely. And then you will delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desire. Commit your way to the Lord and trust in him, and he will act. And he will make your righteousness known like the light, and he will make your justice known like midday. Be silent before the Lord and wait for him. Do not get upset about someone who makes his way successful, about a person carrying out schemes. Let go of anger and leave wrath behind. Do not get upset, only to act wickedly. For those who act wickedly will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord, they will possess the land. And just a little bit longer and the wicked person will be gone, and you will look closely at the place where he was, and he will not be there. But the humble will possess the land, and delight themselves in great prosperity.
Before the first section begins, we have the superscription. The superscription names David as the author, which means we should read it as a psalm from the king God chose for Israel, God's anointed. God chose him to lead the people, and he began leading them even before he became king. Hundreds of people joined him to follow him and fight for him. In his psalms, David spoke poetically about his own experiences, and also about how he was responsible to teach and care for the people who followed him. The first section, verses 1 to 11, which we have summarized as getting upset versus trusting, begins with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph. This line is strong advice about what a person should not do. Do not get upset about those who act wickedly. Every section beginning with a new letter in this part of the psalm uses a second-person singular form, making the teaching very personal, compared to the more abstract tone of the rest of the psalm. Just like Psalm 1, this advice seems to respond to people who might doubt the Lord's justice and question why they are serving him when they see the wicked prosper. People felt similarly frustrated when the prophet Malachi lived, and he recorded these feelings in his prophecies. It is useless to serve God. Evildoers not only prosper, but they put God to the test, and they escape. In Psalm 37, David responds, "Do not get upset about those who act wickedly." He advises people not to imitate them out of jealousy, for they are like grass. Grass sprouts up quickly, but it is weak in the heat of the sun. The grass dries up and disappears as quickly as it appeared. This is the main image throughout the psalm. Grass grows quickly, but lasts only a short while. The verse starting with the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Bet, begins with the key word trust. Trust in the Lord and do good. While it is foolish to become upset about the wicked, it is wise to trust in the Lord. That is the key to true prosperity, because the Lord will give those who trust him what he promised Abraham. They will live in the land and graze securely like sheep who graze in green fields. Delighting in the Lord and receiving what their hearts desire is a way of describing what living in the land is like. Living in the land in ancient Israel was a picture of being blessed. It meant prospering and enjoying good rainfall and harvests, health and long life. This is easy to say, but hard to accept if the people are currently experiencing a life that is very different. Recognizing this, David assures his people that the very best thing to do is to commit their ways to the Lord. When they trust the Lord, not anybody or anything else, they will see the Lord act. When he does, it will become obvious to everyone that the wicked were wrong, and those who trusted in the Lord were right. At that time, David tells them, "The Lord will make your righteousness known. It will be as clear as the light in the middle of the day that they have obeyed the Lord's commands, and they will receive the reward they deserve." Trusting God sometimes means waiting and not being able to take a desired action. If people trust the Lord, then they must first choose not to be upset about the wicked. Instead, David urges them, be silent before the Lord and wait for him. Be patient. People who take action when they are upset and impatient often act wickedly themselves. And the people who become wicked themselves because they are upset with the wicked, will end their lives in the same way. Just like the wicked, they will disappear. This is the worst result that should warn people not to get upset. In contrast, those who do not act because they are angry and instead wait hopefully for the Lord will enjoy the best result. They will live in the land. This is a summary of the Psalm's message. Verses 10 to 11 end this first section with a vivid picture of the future for those who hope in the Lord when the wicked are destroyed. People will look for the wicked, expecting to find them, but they will be surprised. The wicked will be gone. No matter how hard people look for them, they will not be there. This imagined future has two parts. The wicked disappear, and also the humble people, those who did wait patiently for the Lord and kept doing good, receive a reward. God will reward them as the true descendants of Abraham who get to live in the land and enjoy all its goodness. That land, described in Deuteronomy, was a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs gushing out into the valleys and hills, land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce, and you will lack nothing. David reminds the people how great a reward this good land will be, to persuade his audience that it is worth waiting and trusting, even if they have questions about how unjust it is that the wicked prosper right now. This is the whole message of the psalm, which he already delivered in the first section. The rest of the psalm does not provide more information. It expands on the different futures of the wicked and righteous in order to persuade people as powerfully as possible that the message is true. The next sections reinforce the psalm's message to the listener by repeating in several different ways, "Do not be fooled by what you see right now. The end will be different."
The wicked person is plotting against the righteous person and grinding his teeth at him. The Lord laughs at him because he sees that his time will come. The wicked have drawn swords and strung their bows in order to bring down the one who is afflicted and poor, in order to slaughter those whose conduct is upright. Their swords will go into their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. A little belonging to the righteous person is better than the abundance of many wicked people. For the arms of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord is upholding the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their inheritance will be forever. They will not come to shame during hard times, and they will eat their fill during times of famine. For the wicked will perish, and the Lord's enemies will perish like flowers in a pasture. They are finished like smoke. They are finished.
The second section, verses 12 to 20, we've summarized as the wicked fade. It says more about the contrast between what the wicked person is doing now and what will happen to the wicked person in the future. It begins with agreeing that the wicked person is doing wrong. He is truly hostile and planning to harm the righteous. But the statement, "The Lord laughs," is an expression that shows God does not respect them or think that they are dangerous. He laughs because he knows what will happen to the wicked person. His time of prospering will end, and he will be destroyed. The psalm vividly describes how God will destroy the wicked, and it is worth paying attention to the details. As we often see in the Psalms, the wicked cause their own deaths. They have drawn their swords and strung their bows, getting their weapons ready to use against the righteous, the suffering, the poor, and the upright, which were all ways of describing God's people. But those same weapons will cause their own deaths. Their plans against the righteous will fail to defeat the righteous. They will only succeed in defeating themselves. David is warning those who can only think about how jealous they are of the wicked. Consider the full story. The wicked may be prospering now. They may even be planning to harm others, but their plans will only defeat themselves in the end. Those who do choose to respond with anger and jealousy will become wicked and share this same future. Their plans to harm others will cause their own defeat. Verses 16 and 17 sound like many proverbs that conclude that prospering in the present is not always good because of what we know about the future. In fact, when a righteous person has a little, they can look forward to a better future than many wicked people who have a lot. People who are wise and understand what God promises will know it is better not to prosper in the present than to act wickedly. Many people were probably not ready to hear this advice. David follows it with the harsh truth that proves he is right. God will break the arms of the wicked, that strength which brought them wealth. Anyone who prospers because of acting unjustly will end up ruining their own lives. This is why it is foolish to desire to prosper like they do. But the Lord himself takes care of the righteous, even if they only have a little, and the wicked are making their lives difficult. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, which means he takes care of the blameless, and he will make sure that their inheritance lasts forever. They do not need to be greedy right now, because God will make sure they eventually become wealthy. Even if they do not have much now, they do not need to fear hard times. God will care for them. Even if they do not have much now, they will still have enough to eat, even when food is hard to find. They will not need to leave their land and inheritance. God will make sure they stay on the land. They do not trust wealth. They trust God. The final verse to this middle section speaks poetically about the idea that the wicked fade. It returns to plant imagery. The wicked, the Lord's enemies, are like grass, like the flowers that grow wild in a green field. They may be very beautiful, but they are only beautiful for a short time. When life becomes only a little difficult, they die. The poet then replaces that image with an image of something that lasts an even shorter time. Smoke. Smoke disappears more quickly than grass, and when it is gone, there is no sign it ever was there. The words show how quickly and completely the wicked will disappear. In the time it takes to say the words, they are finished. Truly, they are finished.
The wicked person is borrowing and will not repay, but the righteous person is giving generously. For those blessed by him will possess the land, and those cursed by him will be destroyed. When a person's steps are made steadfast by the Lord, then he will be pleased with his way. When he falls, he will not fall flat, because the Lord is supporting his hand. I was once a young man, and now I am old, and I have not seen a righteous person abandoned or his children looking for food. He is always lending generously, and his children will become a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good, and you will reside forever. For the Lord loves justice, and he will not abandon those who are loyal to him. A righteous person's mouth utters what is wise, and his tongue speaks what is just. The instruction of his God is in his heart. His steps will not slip. Wrongdoers are exterminated, and the children of the wicked are destroyed. The righteous will possess the land and reside on it forever.
The second section explained more about what it means that the wicked fade, and the third section, verses 21 to 31, explains more about what it means that the righteous last. Like the second section, it begins with the wicked person taking advantage of others. Here, he's cheating people out of money. The wicked person borrows, but refuses to repay. The righteous person does the opposite. He gives generously. He gives generously because he knows how the Lord treats people. Those whom God blesses will live in and possess the land, and the righteous want to live in the land. Those whom God curses, the wicked who borrow money but do not repay it, do not last. God will destroy them. The main focus of this section is not the wicked, but the righteous. We especially notice the metaphor of life as a journey, with words such as steps, away, falling, and slipping. This is the same imagery as we find in Psalm 1, and Psalm 37 shares a key point with Psalm 1. The righteous are not successful because of what they do for themselves. They're successful because of their relationship with the Lord. Earlier, verse 18 used the same language that we find at the end of Psalm 1. The Lord knows or cares for his people. In this section, which describes the person on a journey, the Lord knowing and caring looks like making the person's steps steadfast or faithful. Having steadfast steps means a person continues to obey the Lord's commands, such as giving generously. When people live the way the Lord requires, he's pleased with them and he blesses them. When difficult times come, or when the person is tempted to get upset at the wicked, he will not fall flat. This means the hard times will not ruin him and force him to join the wicked. Instead, the Lord will catch him before he falls, because the Lord is supporting his hand. This is not claiming that the righteous will never have difficulties. Hard times will come, but the righteous do not need to fear. The Lord will always be there to care for his own people. He will make their steps steadfast. In verses 25 and 26, David tells of his own experience. He has lived a long time, through many hard times. Yet, he has never seen God abandon a righteous person. He has never seen the children of righteous people looking for food. Instead, he has seen the Lord provide for the righteous over and over again. Not only has God given the righteous person enough to provide for his family, but he has given him enough to be generous toward others. He is always lending generously. And after a lifetime of giving, his children will become a blessing. That is, when people see his children, they will say, "You are blessed. Your father was a good and generous man." David testifies from his own experience that this is true. David repeats the mention of lending generously and the idea of blessing from verses 21 and 22, showing that verses 21 to 26 is a single section focusing on how the generous do not suffer for giving freely, but instead God always cares for them. God makes their steps steadfast. The idea of residing forever marks the second half of this section, at the beginning and end, as an inclusio in verses 27 and 29. If we look at the way the verses are numbered, and we know the order of the Hebrew alphabet, the order of the alphabetic acrostic at this juncture will look odd. This is because the order of the alphabet changed during the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BC, and scribes rearranged David's earlier acrostic to fit the new order. The changes to the order mess up the poetic structure of the psalm. If we follow the order of the alphabet from David's time, roughly the 10th century BC, it will not be confusing. On this, see our exegetical issues video for Psalm 34, which discusses the issues in detail. This second part of the section, verses 27 to 31, connects justice with long life. Justice is obeying what the Lord teaches and commands. In verse 27, David urges his audience yet again, do not join the wicked. Instead, turn away from the evil that will only help you prosper for a short time, and do what is just and good, and you will live in the land forever. Doing justice leads to a long life, because the Lord himself loves justice, and he will care for those who also love justice. Those who are loyal to him will love what he loves, and he will certainly not leave those who are loyal to him. What does justice look like? As so often, David connects justice with speech. One of the ways in which people can do good is by speaking words that are wise and just to help their neighbor. A righteous person's mouth utters what is wise, and his tongue speaks what is just. Many of David's psalms express sadness and anger about all the people who lie, trick, and cheat others. Wisdom and justice is the opposite of the way the wicked live. A person will be able to speak with wisdom and justice if the instruction of his God, the best guide to wisdom and justice, is in his heart, and he thinks about it during the day and at night. Because the Lord's instruction perfectly guides a person as he walks through life, his steps will not slip. This is more of the journey imagery, like we saw in Psalm 1. When a righteous person thinks about joining the wicked, he'll resist and continue to obey, or walk in the Lord's teaching. He will not slip when he takes a step, because God has made his steps steadfast. By contrast, wrongdoers, that is, people who do wrong and who do not follow the Lord's teaching, will certainly disappear in the future. The children of wicked people will not bless anyone. They also will soon be destroyed. At every point, there is a contrast between the future for the righteous and the future for the wicked. As David repeatedly argues, those who choose prosperity with the wicked will share the same future as the wicked, disappearing from the earth. The righteous who reject the ways that the wicked prosper experience a very different future. They'll possess the land and reside on it forever. They are the children of Abraham who inherit what God promised. That is the reward they should wait to receive. The third section, the righteous last, ends here. The entire section begins and closes with the wicked disappearing in verses 22 and 28b. In the first half, the righteous person is generous and yet never suffers from not having what he needs. And in the second section, the one who turns away from evil and tries to do justice and good lives forever. Whereas the wicked disappear, the righteous lasts. The Lord supports them, so their steps do not slip. They make it through everything. The righteous last.
The wicked person is watching for the righteous person and trying to kill him. The Lord will not abandon him into his hand, and he will not let him be condemned as guilty when he enters into judgment. Hope in the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to possess the land. You will see when the wicked are destroyed. I once saw a ruthless, wicked person, and he was ascending like a native tree. Then I passed by, and get this, he was gone. Then I looked for him, and he was not found. Pay attention to the blameless one, and look at the upright one, because the future of a blameless person is peace, but those who rebel are completely exterminated. The future of the wicked is destroyed, but the salvation of the righteous comes from the Lord, their fortress during times of trouble, and the Lord helps them and rescues them. He will rescue them from the wicked and save them, because they have sought refuge in him.
The last section, verses 32 to 42, we've summarized as watch and wait. It has the most complicated structure. There is a chiasm that highlights an additional personal anecdote at its center. But this story is about a wicked person, not a righteous person. The section opens with the wicked person watching for the righteous person to try to kill him. This may include the idea of bringing the righteous person to court on false charges and finding witnesses who will lie when they speak to the court. The wicked are hoping for something they will not see. The Lord will not leave the righteous person alone to suffer in the hand or power of the wicked person, and he will not let the court judge him to be guilty, even when the wicked person tries to lie about him. The wicked person may try to have the righteous person killed and to take his property away, but he will fail. David knew what it was like to be afraid someone would kill him over lies about what he had done. But he insists, even in this unjust situation, a righteous person should not get upset about the wicked. The wicked will fail. instead of getting upset, he urges his audience again. Hope in the Lord and keep his way. Even when it is difficult to walk in his way, it is worth it. And in the end, he will put you in a high position to possess the land. And from this high place, you will see when God destroys the wicked. Just as Abraham looked down and saw how God destroyed the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. David says this confidently because he has already experienced how true it is. That experience becomes the focus of the next few verses. As mentioned above, there is a chiasm. The outer verses are about God protecting the righteous. Between those verses, we find an exhortation or strong advice. And in the center, we find the personal anecdote. The theme of looking or seeing is woven throughout, with the climax in verses 35 and 36. This is the part of the acrostic that begins with the Hebrew letter resh, which is the first letter of the word for wicked. It is the central part of the chiasm in this section, the personal anecdote, and it contains one of the most important features in the psalm. Within verses 34 and 36, we find a 15-word sequence of words that contain the letter resh. There is no other example of something like this in the book of Psalms. Hebrew poetry often plays with balanced numbers, so it is intentional that the words for wicked, which include this letter resh, occur 15 times, the same number of times that the name for God, the Lord, is used in this psalm. When the poet all of a sudden repeats 15 words with resh, it symbolizes that the wicked are overwhelming and always present, like the native wild trees that grow quickly, even in bad conditions, sprouting up where the farmers don't want them. It is as if the wicked are everywhere, even though no one wants them around. Then, one day, David passed by where he was used to seeing the wicked person prospering, and, "Get this!" he says. The wicked person was gone. After the word that means "get this," the words he uses no longer have the letter resh. The letter resh disappears from the poem, symbolizing how the wicked disappeared just as suddenly. The poem does not say exactly why the wicked person disappeared, but it does poetically hint at a reason. It may have seemed as if the wicked were equally important to the story as the Lord was, since the words for the wicked and the Lord both occurred 15 times. Since the two main participants in the story are the wicked and the Lord, if the wicked disappear, we can assume the other main participant, the Lord, caused it. After the story, David gives strong advice for the second time in verses 37 and 38. It is a waste of time to pay attention to the wicked, because they will lose their life and suddenly disappear. It is a waste of time to get upset about their prospering for a short time. David turns to focus on a much better way to spend time. Pay attention to the positive example of the blameless one, and look at the upright one, because the future of a blameless person is living peacefully and prosperously in the land. It is not wrong to want to prosper, and David does not criticize those who want good things. He also wants to prosper. But people should not want to prosper no matter what it costs. They should want God to make them prosper because they are innocent and righteous. They shouldn't want to prosper like the wicked, from acting unjustly and making other people suffer. As for the wicked who rebel against the Lord, God will certainly completely remove them from the earth, exterminating them. David begs his audience not to believe lies. Even if the wicked seem to be enjoying a long and peaceful life in the land with many descendants, the future of the wicked is that God will certainly destroy them. This last section opened with the wicked threatening the righteous and trying to kill them. Even if the wicked will have short lives, they still threaten the righteous now. And the final verses address that problem. Righteous people must go through hard times because of what the wicked do. But in the middle of hard times, God will save the righteous. The Lord will be their strong, safe place, their fortress during hard times. David knows what it feels like when wicked people threaten him. His closing words speak to those whom the wicked threaten and put in danger, and those who don't have enough food and might want to join the wicked to survive. Joining the wicked will not help. The Lord helps them and rescues them. He will always rescue them from the wicked, and He will save them because they have sought refuge in Him. Just like someone runs to a strong, safe place to escape enemies. The wise will not get upset about the wicked, even when the wicked threaten them. The wise know both the way the lives of the wicked will end in the future and the way the Lord will help and rescue the righteous in the present. The Lord is the one who will help them in hard times. The psalm began with David reminding people that there is no good reason to get upset about the wicked, for they would soon die like grass withers. Getting upset only encourages a person to become wicked himself. Instead of getting upset, David urges the person he is teaching to trust in the Lord and do good, for that is the path that leads to enjoying the land forever. The two middle sections describe more about how the wicked will die and disappear, as their own weapons destroy them. The sections also describe how the Lord will reward the righteous. He will repay them for being generous by giving them His own generous blessings. The final section is the most dramatic, describing how the wicked suddenly disappear, just like David saw himself one time. Why become upset over someone who will disappear so soon? But it is also true that hard times in life often threaten the righteous and keep them from prospering. The psalm closes by confidently expressing that the Lord will always rescue them. They will live peacefully in the future as they enjoy living in the land forever with the Lord as their strong and safe place who will always protect them. This completes our section-by-section walkthrough of Psalm 37. We'll finish now with a reading of the text that brings everything together.
By David. Do not get upset about those who act wickedly. Do not be jealous of those who do wrong, for they will soon wither like grass, and they will fade like green leaves on plants. Trust in the Lord and do good. Reside in the land and graze securely. And then you will delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you your heart's desires. Commit your way to the Lord and trust in Him, and He will act. And He will make your righteousness known like the light, and He will make your justice known like midday. Be silent before the Lord and wait for Him. Do not get upset about someone who makes his way successful, about a person carrying out schemes. Let go of anger and leave wrath behind. Do not get upset, only to act wickedly. For those who act wickedly will be destroyed. But those who hope in the Lord, they will possess the land. And just a little bit longer, and the wicked person will be gone, and you will look closely at the place where he was, and he will not be there. But the humble will possess the land and delight themselves in great prosperity. The wicked person is plotting against the righteous person and grinding his teeth at him. The Lord laughs at him because He sees that his time will come. The wicked have drawn swords and strung their bows in order to bring down the one who is afflicted and poor, in order to slaughter those whose conduct is upright. Their swords will go into their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. A little belonging to the righteous person is better than the abundance of many wicked people. For the arms of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord is upholding the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their inheritance will be forever. They will not come to shame during hard times, and they will eat their fill during times of famine. For the wicked will perish, and the Lord's enemies will perish like flowers in a pasture. They are finished, like smoke. They are finished. The wicked person is borrowing and will not repay, but the righteous person is giving generously. For those blessed by him will possess the land, and those cursed by him will be destroyed. When a person's steps are made steadfast by the Lord, then he will be pleased with his way. When he falls, he will not fall flat, because the Lord is supporting his hand. I was once a young man, and now I am old, and I have not seen a righteous person abandoned, or his children looking for food. He is always lending generously, and his children will become a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good, and you will reside forever. For the Lord loves justice, and he will not abandon those who are loyal to him. A righteous person's mouth utters what is wise, and his tongue speaks what is just. The instruction of his God is in his heart. His steps will not slip. Wrongdoers are exterminated, and the children of the wicked are destroyed. The righteous will possess the land and reside on it forever. The wicked person is watching for the righteous person and trying to kill him. The Lord will not abandon him into his hand, and he will not let him be condemned as guilty when he enters into judgment. Hope in the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to possess the land. You will see when the wicked are destroyed. I once saw a ruthless wicked person, and he was ascending like a native tree. Then I passed by, and get this, he was gone. Then I looked for him, and he was not found. Pay attention to the blameless one, and look at the upright one, because the future of a blameless person is peace. But those who rebel are completely exterminated. The future of the wicked is destroyed. But the salvation of the righteous comes from the Lord, their fortress during times of trouble. And the Lord helps them and rescues them. He will rescue them from the wicked and save them, because they have sought refuge in him.